Good evening, afternoon, night, morning, whenever you find a way watching this podcast. Again, we're at week 6. We're heading into week 6 of the college football season. I'm joined by my good friend Bobby Wilson of the TNT College Football Podcast, and we're here discussing the race to the Lambert Trophy. I guess this might be a good time to break this since it's coming up soon. So in a couple weeks, probably gonna have to go on hiatus for this podcast because my wife and I are expecting a baby due in a couple weeks. I haven't really announced that. I just don't really bring it up, I guess, unless it comes into discussion. I know Bobby's known about this for a while, so we might go on hiatus for a few weeks, but that might not even be an issue with how this race is going for the Lambert Trophy. Might need to make a brief emergency appearance after Notre Dame Navy, but otherwise, like there really isn't that much with this race. But without further ado, Bobby, how's everything going?
Well, Omar, as always, it's great to be here. I mean, you know this already. I'm super excited for you and your wife. I can't wait for you guys to experience it. I have three of my own, so they're all a blessing, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I mean, I keep having to remind myself too the verse, children are a blessing from God. A heritage from Him. So
Hmm.
there are tough days, but just really excited too. Things will be different, but in a good way. So very excited for it.
Yes, exactly.
So I guess with that out of the way, I guess we'll start off with our rankings. I mean, man, there's an obvious story, an elephant in the room, obviously, with this past week with the whiteout game with Penn State, Oregon. It's hard to just not lead off the show with that. But I mean that definitely it did really change our rankings, I'll say, because it's just such a narrow race to the Lambert Trophy. So, Bobby, I'll just reveal yours first. So, for your rankings and our rankings, I realize are pretty much like are mostly the same, to be honest with you, with just a few deviations in the middle. But we got Penn State at number one, Navy at number two, Delaware at number three, which we're going to be talking a lot about Delaware later on in this podcast. Rutgers at number four. Rutgers, man, I think they're a team that's dealt a tough hand, honestly. Like
So
one of the
close.
so close. Yeah, one of the most talented teams I think in the Northeast. But man, that schedule is doing them no favors, and they might not even make a bowl. Like we were talking about before, like they needed at least the Minnesota game, and it's looking pretty dicey now because Maryland looks good, as does Washington. Two games that I thought that were I guess not really gimmies, but where they had in my mind an over 50% chance to win that one. But man, Rutgers at four, still very talented. Syracuse at number five. Syracuse really we'll probably talk about them a little bit later, but really surprised me. Call it a letdown. I mean, I'm sure they surprised you, Bobby. UConn at number
Hmm.
six. West Virginia at number seven over Pitt. I know that when you sent in your rankings to me, you had in parentheses one more week until we can drop West Virginia lower than Pitt, just because I mean it's still early enough for the head-to-head advantage to reign supreme. And then number nine, Army had a tough week, obviously. Temple at number 10. Temple could leap Army, I feel like, in both of our rankings soon, after this week. Buffalo at 11, Boston College at 12, UMass at 13. So I do have to say, I think the bottom five, I want to say, are pretty constant for both of us and pretty consistent. Where we have teams in that range where, excuse me, they're fighting for bowl eligibility or they're fighting for a win in general. If you're the case of UMass, honestly, or even Boston College. Boston College does not have an FBS win yet. So with that, with the revealing the rankings of your rankings, Bobby, which team surprised you the most in a good way? I guess we'll start off positive.
Well, if we're being honest, we only had two teams win last week, Navy and UConn. UConn wins by three on the road at Buffalo. Obviously, everybody knows my affinity for UConn, and I cover them and such. So I'm not gonna say that. I'll say Navy. Was it pretty? No, but that game against Rice was. I mean, that was a good football game, and Rice is a significantly better football team than we ever could have imagined coming into this year. With just imagine having to. We kind of talked about this last week, implementing that new system with basically the same kind of cast of players that they had the year before. I just give that coaching staff and that team a lot of credit for how they've responded. But Navy continues to win, continues to take care of business. I think maybe the teams that are, you could say, were the most surprising, I guess, since um, so many teams lost, is you're happy that you had an off week this week. So in the case of Temple and Delaware, you're just like, hey, that's great. We're able to. Everybody lost this week, so it's kind of like one of those where it's kind of difficult to pick what team surprised you in a good way. I expected Navy to win, and I expected UConn to win, and they were probably maybe a little bit closer than I would have imagined. But at the same time, okay, I'll say this: I was surprised that Penn State fought back the way that they did, because I am not a fan of Drew Aller. I never have been. I don't think I ever will be. But I will give him credit for how he responded in the fourth quarter, because he showed a lot of guts, and to get his team back into the position to potentially win the football game. I will say, though, the way that game ended was pretty predictable, if you ask me. That's what I kind of expected. I expected him to throw a pick at some point. Look what he did. Now, granted, the defensive player made an amazing play, but still, I'm not really surprised how that ended.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree. Well, I guess with the general outlook of the Northeast this week, it was really tough. And I guess I should have said that for surprised in a good way, it didn't have to, I guess, didn't have to be a win, honestly, because the team that surprised me the most lost because the pickings were slim. But I agree, honestly, with Navy. It's easy to fall into that trap with Air Force coming up this week. But they didn't, obviously, and I think that they were benefited too by playing an option team before playing Air Force. It definitely is better now. Air Force is who would have ever thought to say this? Air Force is more explosive than Rice is. I mean, Liam Zarka
Mm-hmm.
is amazing. I'm trying to start this movement to have Flight Suit Josh Allen be a nickname for him. So I'm gonna say it as much as I can. But yeah, I mean, it was a good game, and I want to say though, I think if there's something I'm nitpicking with Navy, I think Blake Horvath just needs to kind of cut down on the interceptions. He only threw one. He's thrown one in his past two games, and I can't blame him to say he's like terrible for throwing interceptions. But it's like you want to see your senior quarterback just avoid those mistakes, avoid those throws. But the Rice defense puts teams in positions like that, puts quarterbacks in positions like that to make throws like that. So I'd have to agree, but I think I was surprised too. I kind of called the game over once Oregon took a two touchdown lead in the fourth quarter for the Penn State game. I was like, it's over. So I was
I
pretty.
did. I literally tweeted it.
I did not see that because I think I was also watching the San Jose State Stanford game, the Bill Walsh Legacy game on my
Mm.
other screen, and my dad being from the Bay Area, growing up near San Jose, I was just enraged by the meltdown that San Jose State had. Yeah,
They
they,
had
they
it.
they did, and that's one as a kid, just like following San Jose State as a kid with my dad. Like last year's game was amazing. Just after all the times that Stanford would beat San Jose State as a kid and just would not even play them in San Jose. So it was poetic last year. I was expecting much of the same, but yeah, I mean neither are Northeast teams, but yeah, like I guess this kind of shows the state of Northeast football where we're just talking about teams way outside of the Lambert Trophy area. So going on to, I guess, negatively, which team surprised you in the worst way? I have a feeling I know. I have a feeling that we'll have the same team. To be honest with you.
Well, I'm going to go with Syracuse because, yes, Steven Angeli tore his Achilles, um, but they gave up 503 yards of total offense to Duke. And I'm not saying that Duke's bad. They're not. They have a very competent quarterback and plenty of skill position players. But it's the fact that you gave up 503 yards at home and you lose 38-3. Just a bad performance by the Orange. And I felt the need that I obviously still need to rank them ahead of UConn because the head-to-head win. We'll continue to do that at least for the next few weeks, of course. Just like I said, just like you brought up with West Virginia and Pitt. I mean, West Virginia loses one more game. I think we can all agree that they can be moved down. The Pitt game was their Super Bowl. They proved that. But yeah, that's who I'm going with.
Yeah, I think that's a good segue to go into my rankings too, because I also picked Syracuse as the most disappointing team this week, which I'll elaborate. further. But for my rankings, I got much again, like we said, much of the same really. So Penn State 1, Navy 2, Delaware 3, Rutgers 4, Syracuse 5. I think our top 5 is identical. I think the only changes happen with starting at number 6, where I have West Virginia at 6, Pitt at 7, UConn at number 8. Just because in that order, because I think it's kind of that weird cyclical thing where um, well, it's not even cyclical, but weird thing where it's like West Virginia beat Pitt, and I think Pitt would beat UConn on a neutral field, or yeah, on a neutral field, and
How
then
dare you?
yeah, I know. Like you said, week 1 when Army lost to Tarleton. Don't shoot me. So don't shoot me, Bobby. But but bottom 5 again is almost identical for both of us. I think it is identical. I'm trying to squint and see where we got
Yeah.
Army 9, Temple 10, Buffalo 11, Boston College 12. Which that one could seem like a typo to some people watching who are casual fans, but Boston College is rightfully at number 12 because they have one win against the FCS school, Colgate. Not even the best team in the Patriot League. That's Lehigh. So Boston College, I don't think that they'll end up with one win, but as of right now, their resume is one of the weakest in the Northeast, and then UMass at number 13. So like I said, I agree with you with Syracuse. I mean, it makes you wonder if beating Clemson. I mean, of course, Angeli got hurt, but beating Clemson was an emotional hangover for Syracuse. And I mean, you want to see more out of the run game for a team coached by Fran Brown, of course, with his roots in Georgia on the Georgia staff. I mean, the run game just wasn't really there for Syracuse in the way that they needed it to be with the new quarterback. 85 rushing yards. And that's just something too that you expect Syracuse to have. Even going back to when Dino Babers was head coach, Sean Tucker running the ball very well for Syracuse. So I think you said mostly everything that needed to be said about Syracuse being disappointing this week. My biggest surprise, and this is why I said that it did not have to be a team that won. Honestly, I'm gonna have to say UMass. Like we've been ragging on UMass, but I'll be honest. I mean, I didn't think that they would cover the spread against Missouri after how Missouri played against Louisiana. I thought we would see much of the same, but I think the defense showed some good resistance early on in the first half, only allowing 21 points. I mean, there was you could say that UMass was still in that game going into halftime. It was 21-6 and ended 42-6. I was particularly impressed with the linebacker play with Timmy Hinspeter, who had 17 tackles and an return interception for 63 yards. Like you could say that he was the offense because UMass only gained, I think, 120 yards or something like that. His interception put the ball inside the 25, and they scored their only touchdown of the game. That one. In fact, if you added Hinspeter's interception return yards of I think it was like 63 yards, that's like a third of UMass's offensive output in the day in total offensive yards and interception yards. But all that ramblings to say that the defense looked a lot better than it did against Iowa, looked more resistant. And I thought Ahmad Hardy was going to run for 300 yards or something on the Minutemen.
Yeah.
But he didn't. So I'm pleasantly surprised with UMass. I don't think they'll pull out a win against Western Michigan this week. I do think I don't think it'll be embarrassing. I think that Western Michigan will cover this spread of 14 points because because Western Michigan has a really good defense and UMass's offense has a lot to figure out. But I mean, they'll make it competitive, honestly. And I think it'll be good for them to compete well against a team that beat Toledo. But UMass is my biggest pleasant surprise, honestly. So hopefully they can parlay this momentum into some wins in the MAC.
And I think they really can. I mean, they play Kent State coming up. They go there, but still, I mean, that's a winnable game.
Right.
Then I mean, there's some other games in their schedule too where they have an opportunity. Their defense has stepped up, that's for sure, like you said,
Yeah.
and they're it's going to present. They're going to be presented the opportunities to get a couple wins coming up.
Yeah, I overlooked that Kent State game. Yeah, that will be something interesting to see. Hopefully UMass pulls that one out. So going on to storylines with the trophy. So Penn State, I mean, it's not over for them. They're both obviously number one in our rankings, but how badly does Penn State need a resume win coming up? I mean, they have Ohio State and Indiana coming up. How badly do they need to win either of those games to win the Lambert Trophy?
Well, I don't know if I'd necessarily say it's a must win in either scenario, just because of some of the things that have transpired from the other programs. I think obviously it helps. You beat Ohio State. I mean, you might even be able to lock it up at that point if you're able to do that. I think them having the showing that they had against Oregon was very impressive. Especially the way they came back and fought back and made that the game go into overtime. I give them a lot of credit for that. And I know a lot of people are hammering on James Franklin and all this and that, but I mean, it takes a lot to come back in that situation when you're not showing really any life offensively throughout that game, and just to be able to kind of, I don't want to say turn it on, but something sparked and they got going, and that it takes a lot to do that, and especially against a very good team like Oregon, you got to give them a lot of credit for doing that. And again, they obviously have the opportunities to beat marquee programs in front of them, which is going to set things up really well for them. And if they're able to, even if they don't, let's say they go 10-2, you got to look at it might just be a three-team race at this point with Navy and Delaware now as well. We'll have to see how those teams fare moving forward. But again, it's a it's not as maybe it's not as big of a gap between number one and number two as we maybe thought it was, because I think Navy's going to keep winning. But obviously, we're not going to know a lot about Navy until we see them down the road towards the end of their schedule, where things get a lot harder too.
Yeah, I agree honestly, and I don't think it's a must win like you said, like the with how narrow the race is. But there is a scenario in my head that I could see Penn State, with all those losses, not winning, with losing to Ohio State, Indiana, and Oregon, having a 9-3 record, where I could see them not winning the Lambert Trophy, and that's a situation where Navy goes 11-1, maybe with either a win against Memphis or a win against Notre Dame, because those are quality wins right there. Even North Texas too. Um, excuse me, I'm forgetting about North Texas being a resume win too. So that's a scenario I can see playing out. But a question though that I wanted to ask and discuss was if Penn State goes 0-3 against Indiana, Oregon, and Ohio State, um, and finishes 9-3. Would you take Penn State to win the Lambert Trophy over a 10-2 Navy team with just losses to Notre Dame and Memphis, but a win over North Texas?
Well, I think at that point too, you're looking at Navy. Would you would have to assume they would be playing in the American title game at that point, depending on how it all shakes out with the rest of their games. But I mean, like we've said before, it's the most accomplished team in the Northeast. So you can kind of take that as you want. Me personally, I think winning a conference championship is a very, very important thing. And it could set them apart because a three-loss Penn State team with three losses in the Big Ten, they're not playing for the Big Ten championship at that point. So I think that's a very important thing to take into consideration here. So I mean, in this scenario that you're presenting, I think absolutely Navy can win at that point.
Yeah, I think with that too, even if they don't win if they don't win or get to the conference championship game, I guess the Commander in Chiefs trophy is definitely an accomplishment, honestly, and maybe
Mm-hmm,
that.
mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd rather have one trophy than no trophies. If we're looking at it from a very simple perspective, that is something that I guess could be used as criteria. The Commander in Chiefs trophy, because that's a conference in its own. Um, that's a conference in its own. That being said, though, I do think that Navy might, if they beat Notre Dame, which that would be their first win over Notre Dame since 2016. I think that would honestly count as an accomplishment where you're breaking a long losing streak and you get a rare win in a rivalry that's spanned for decades too. So I think if Navy were to win one game to help their resume, um, I guess if it's a Notre Dame versus Memphis, then you'd want to win the Notre Dame game for that accomplished um, criteria, like you
Mm-hmm.
said. So yeah, it's interesting looking at this too because for Penn State, like a 9-3 Penn State, like yes, you can look at the Big Ten argument, but for accomplished, their best resume win at that point would be. Let's look at their schedule because I couldn't tell you what their best resume win would be if they don't,
Right.
if they
Right.
don't beat Indiana or Penn State. It would probably be. This is rough. Um, Michigan State, maybe, or Nebraska would be their best win. So not exactly the best resume for a Lambert Trophy champion with 3 losses.
Right. I agree.
Yeah. So going on to our next kind of scenario slash hot topic. So Delaware, as viewers might have noticed, listeners might have noticed, has slid up all the way to number 3 in our Lambert Trophy poll. And looking at it, there of course still is a chance that they can go 11-1 with a win over Wake Forest. How strong would their case be in that scenario? Keep in mind that they cannot play in the Conference USA Championship game because they're a transitioning school. And then bowls as well would be a question mark. They'd be at the mercy of every other team of the FBS not filling all the bowl spots. But Bobby, how strong would an 11-1 Delaware's case be for the Lambert Trophy?
I think that they would have an amazing argument at that point because first off, it's the dumbest rule that there is that a transitioning program cannot play for a conference title, cannot play for a bowl game and such because why are you penalizing a team who's moving up? It just makes no sense to me. It's an outlandish rule that it's old and archaic and it has no purpose in college sports right now. I think if Delaware was to go 11-1 in this scenario, I actually think that they would have the potentially the greatest argument out of anybody because you're bringing up a team that was an FCS team, yes, an FCS power, but at the same time, you're bringing an FCS program up, competing against an FBS schedule, and looking pretty dang good doing it. And I think that that is arguably one of the best accomplishments that you could have from that standpoint. So I think if they're able to go 11-1, even 10-2, that is a huge, huge accomplishment that you cannot take that out of the equation at all.
Yeah, and I think too, if we're looking at accomplishments, I think that 11 wins would be the record for a first year FBS team.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, by far, I can't imagine. I can't think of another team. I know James Madison was really good, but they definitely didn't hit 11 wins their first year. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I mean, I think for me, in my mind, I think I think Delaware would have to hurdle Navy and Penn State, which would make the Wake Forest game very important for the race. So I think for me, like having to be 11-1 would help. Would
Mm-hmm.
probably be their best case, but 10-2. I mean, a 10-2 Delaware team would definitely get my third place vote over a lot of teams. So it's an interesting storyline because I don't think either of us thought like we didn't think Delaware would be bad, but we didn't think that they would be contending for the Lambert Trophy because of how bad Conference
Absolutely.
USA was and how good they were in non-conference. I know neither of us expected them to beat UConn. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
me as a neutral fan and you as a fan of the team, like neither of us expected that. So
Right, and it's like I said. I mean, it's just it's such an accomplishment for what they've done already thus far. And like you said, we didn't think they'd be bad at all. I thought this team could win 6 games, absolutely. But you look at them right now, like I would argue that they're the favorite in Conference USA right now with how they've played. I mean, Louisiana Tech has looked good. I don't want to downgrade anything that they've done, but Delaware has just been very, very impressive. I'm really excited for the game they're playing this Friday night. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait.
yeah, Delaware Western Kentucky is one of the more underrated games in the slate, like we were
Mm-hmm.
talking about beforehand. So I think that's a good transition to talk about the slate this weekend. And there aren't really many impactful games. So Bobby, what's one or two games that you're looking forward to the most on this slate between Lambert Trophy or involving Lambert Trophy eligible teams?
I'm not going to say UConn just because everybody knows that's where I'm first going to go, of course. Um, I mean, we have BC Pitt, two Lambert Trophy teams playing against each other. Is there much at stake from a Lambert Trophy perspective? Probably not. But still, this is a big game for Northeast football whenever you have two teams playing against each other, especially because looking at it from my UConn perspective, we play BC coming up. So I'm very, very intrigued to see how they look against Pitt moving forward. I think obviously Delaware, Western Kentucky. I would argue that that's probably the biggest game on the schedule. That's a really really exciting game. It's going to mean a lot in Conference USA from that perspective. Syracuse at SMU would be interesting if Angeli was playing, but it's kind of concerning with how that could look. I'm intrigued with Navy Air Force, obviously, Commander in Chief game. That what that means to the sport and it's a big game. Um, I think you look at some of these other games, and there could be some sizable blowouts. Not necessarily favoring some of the Lambert Trophy teams, but I expect Penn State to go to UCLA and just it could get very very ugly. I imagine. Then there's a couple other games you look at, like West Virginia has to go to BYU. Yes, West Virginia plays in a bit of elevation, so that's not necessarily as big of a thing. It's just BYU is really good, so that's going to be a. I could see that one getting a little ugly, and again, not like you said, not the greatest slate, but still, I mean, there's opportunities for. I think Delaware has the biggest opportunity to potentially make a statement to people and let them know, like, hey, we're here and we're not going anywhere.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I mean, Delaware, Western Kentucky, I think is a sneaky good game. But I think in terms of other teams making statements, I mean, like we talked about earlier, I mean, Temple UTSA, that one is a good one.
I
Evan
forgot about that
Simon,
one.
yeah, like Evan Simon, like I'm surprised that he hasn't thrown an interception yet, and that's not to discredit him. Like he's just playing really good football
He's
because he's
playing
finally
really
got
good.
the line play. Like the line play is finally good for Temple, and he's got a run game too. Finally got some balance in that offense. Another one that I'm looking at that you didn't mention is Eastern Michigan Buffalo. Just on the perspective that I think Buffalo really needs that game for bowl eligibility. Um, Kind of a disappointing year for the Bulls. Like we both thought that they'd be MAC contenders. It's not really looking that way. They still, I mean, they're still very much alive for to win a spot in the MAC championship game. But just the way that they played, it's not indicative of a team that I would consider a contender in the MAC or in the top three of the MAC. But then again, Toledo lost to Western Michigan, so maybe the conference is more open than we think. But it looks like Ohio and everyone else, Ohio, Bowling Green, and everyone else at this moment. So I mean, if Buffalo falls to 2-4, I'm not really sure if the path is as direct for a bowl game. And this is a game that they need against an Eastern Michigan team that struggled. So those are two that I'm looking at that I think have the most appeal in terms of um, improving teams and really bowl races. But everything else too, like you said, like you pretty much covered everything else. Like there's some blowouts, I mean, that are on the slate. Navy Air Force, can't really say much more about that because it is a Commander in Chief's game. It's on CBS. Doesn't get much bigger than that for Service Academy football. So, yeah, I mean, otherwise, I mean, it's a very full slate, but almost seems a lot of empty calories, for lack of a better comparison.
Congratulations to Rutgers for having a week off this week. You
Yeah.
earned it.
Oh yeah, I mean, I want them to make a bowl. So I like what Greg Schiano's done there, but man, it's just yeah, they
They're
just
so
do not
close.
get they oh man, yeah, Ethan Kaliak-Manis though, he's having an amazing year. I mean, I hope he gets some attention from the Senior Bowl. Like I hope he's increasing his draft stock. Like I think he's really proved a lot of people wrong.
Yeah, he's definitely played at a better level than I think was expected.
Yeah, but I think that caps our show, Bobby. Is there anything final you want to have before we sign off?
No, I mean just another great week of Northeast football coming up. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to seeing that and just seeing where the chips fall. Will we have some more movement this week? We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, BC Pitt definitely. That's one. That's a Lambert
Yeah,
Trophy game. Might be between
yep.
two teams that are in the race right now, but that is a Lambert Trophy game. Consider it maybe an elimination game. I don't know. But yeah, thanks again, Bobby, as always for
Absolutely.
joining. I mean, I know we always do this late, but it's enjoyable. It's a labor of love covering this trophy and just covering the race and everything. So. Thank you again, Bobby, and thank you everyone for listening and watching. Really appreciate it. And until next time, everyone, Lord bless you, Lord keep you, make space shine upon you, be gracious to you, And peace, love, and soul on the Burger Popper.